Well, my name is Rick Targow, Rick Targow. I was originally from Los Angeles when I was at Verde Valley, and I now live in Sonoma County in Northern California. Grace. I ended up at Verde Valley School because my mother was looking for a school for me, and she happened to know Edith Wiley. And Edith Wiley had sent Steve Wiley there the year before and was about to send my classmate Nancy, and she told my mother about Verde Valley School, and I got tested, and in August of 1958, there still were some spaces left, and we went to visit Verde Valley School, and in September I was on the train to the school. I have not the vaguest idea. You're asking me to go back to, I mean, those memories have been supplanted by so many other memories from Verde Valley School. I can't, I'm sure that I was awed.
Yeah, you have
by the setting.
General impressions. There's nothing you think of that you're like, wow.
No, there really is. The main thing I remember is Kit Brett Hart, who greeted us, and she was the admissions person then. So I remember her. Of course, I knew her at the school after I got there. But I really genuinely don't remember. I think on the wall outside the dining hall facing Cathedral Rock. And my other favorite place was inside the chapel, or at the chapel, but inside the chapel just looking through that glass at Cathedral. I suspect that those are probably my favorite places. Teacher staff who had an effect on me, I think Joe Brown and Cliff Perkins probably had the greatest, well, no, and also Anton and Muriel Wolf, the music teachers, because I really, I mean, that's where I started in small choir, and over the years I've been in choirs for 45 years. And directed one for 11 years. So that obviously had a great deal of influence on me. Joe Brown, because in his, in religious hour and in his class, which was called Humanities, but really was a comparative cultures kind of come anthropology class. But especially in the religious hour, I learned in the intellectual level about all the religions, and I think the subtext was that all the religions at their core were valid and had something to teach. And many, many years later, I got involved with Sufis who taught the same thing. It was a Universalist Sufi order, and I went to my first Sufi camp after having been drawn in by a choir, the Sufi choir, and that was the same impulse was the universality of all religions, but it was embodied. We did songs and dances and even spiritual practices from all the religions, and it felt like home for me because of what I had learned from Joe Brown and all the people he brought into the campus. And so without knowing it, he opened the door for me to have that kind of spiritual practice, spiritual life. Many years later, this was 1975, so I graduated in '62. I think it had a profound influence. As I look at my life backwards from here, I see many strands, many twists and turns, and many of them go right up against Verde Valley School. Which is not to say that my parents had no influence. Obviously they did. But I think there were 3 or 4 kind of foundational things that I learned at Verde Valley School, not in class, by the way. Besides what I just described, another one is I learned how to be friends with women, girls then. I learned how that one didn't have to be in a romantic relationship to engage with girls, and so that's held me in good stead all of my life. I also learned how to make do. You know, this crazy notion of getting into the backs of trucks, into a bus, and going to Mexico for 3 weeks in this ragtag bunch. But we really learned that whatever we were confronted with, we could make do. And in a sense, that's given me a sort of fearlessness in my life. A sense that, okay, whatever happens that's not in my control, I'll be able to make do. It was phenomenal teaching. Don't worry about when if you're teased. Don't worry about if you're put down. You'll be fine. All of that will fall away later. A more or less intimate relationship with a rolling body of 100 different people, or with the faculty 140. So that years later, when we meet, there is a base of understanding. There were people in my class ahead of me who really were, they were the cool people and I wasn't. And I remember meeting one of them years later, 2 of them years later, but I actually spent the night before that reunion sleepless because I was so, I had such memories of, and this person was walking, as I was walking up toward the chapel, he was walking down on the first day and he broke out into a big grin. And all of that just fell away and we were brothers again. And so there is something about this experience which, just is ongoing and forever. And this includes people who didn't graduate. All you need is 1 year there to change your life, I think. So in I don't know exactly which year this was. I have a hunch it was 60 or 61. But we did this 2 years in a row. And let me first set this up by saying that on Wednesdays we had community meeting. So on Wednesdays we had only half-a-day classes. And then in the afternoon before we went off to town or whatever, we had what was called community meeting in the dining hall. So April 1st fell on a Wednesday in this particular year. And so a bunch of the people from mostly the class ahead of me, but some from my class, pulled some pranks. One of them was taking a Volkswagen Bug that belonged to Louise Callie and putting it so it straddled the pond up by the office and library. And various other things. Oh yes, we brought Taliban, the biggest, clunkiest horse, down and put him in the mailroom at the entry, at the, that entrance to the dining hall. So, okay, that afternoon at community meeting, Cliff Perkins, who was the dean of students, got up. He had been sitting underneath the balcony in the dining hall. So he walks out to the center of the dining hall and says, I've just come from I don't remember what it was called, an executive council meeting, whatever, but the high mucky mucks meeting, and everybody who is involved this morning in that is now on social probation. Silence, absolute silence. Walks all the way back to underneath the balcony, turns around and says, April Fool. And the place exploded.